Hey, welcome to my mini series of Process Chat, where I bring conversations surrounding getting started in business, exit planning, and everything in between. I'm Adriana, your operational guide to helping you build processes so you can focus on progress. So today's episode is all about bottlenecks. And for this one, I want to focus on a client story because it makes it a whole lot easier than me just trying to figure out where I want to be at, getting stuck, and all this other stuff. So we're going to focus on a client story. And honestly, this sounds familiar. It honestly sounds like my story when I had a virtual assistant agency too. But overall, I was going to set the scene here. So first, before I even dive into that, bottlenecks are just a disruption in the process. So like I've talked about, processes are just the step-by-step actions you take to achieve a goal or a task, whatever you want to call it. And bottlenecks are just a disruption. Just think about like the process. You have like your end goal, you have the step-by-step actions that you're taking to get to that end goal, and a bottleneck is just a disruption in one or more of those processes, and it can carry on to other ones as well. So overall, bottlenecks are simply just there's something holding up this step that you're trying to do to reach the end goal. And for this story, I want to focus on, just to kind of like set the scene a little bit more, is a client that hired me to help her build out a business in a box scheme, which honestly it kind of falls under like if you're trying to license something or those that are like wanting to franchise their names and stuff. I call them business in a box. It sounds cool. So, but overall, they hired me to help with that. So like it just dealt with documentation and everything. And upon going on there, I learned a way more because it tends to happen. Like you learn a lot more. But I got hired for that, like just kind of like making sure things were documented and things were ready to get going. But upon going there, we realized there was a lot going on and it wouldn't be right to document that stuff yet because there was a bunch of bottlenecks going on. There wasn't a lot of clarity going on. And something I always say, like, make sure you're not documenting a mess, so to speak, I'm doing air quotes, because documentation is just more than just writing down the process and stuff. Like, you want to make sure the process is actually, again, goes into system building, repeatable, and it makes sense. So anybody can do it. But if you have a bunch of bottlenecks, if you're not really clear on things and you're trying to document it and send it off to somebody else, it's just going to repeat that over and over again. You don't want to do that, especially for like people that have franchise and stuff. Like, you don't want that to happen. But anyway, getting sidetracked. The main thing I want to focus on today is with this particular client, we're supposed to be building out a business in a box. We realized there was a whole lot of things going on. And just to name a few, on the team side, this person had multiple people in different department areas. So like there was clarity there, like people knew what they were supposed to be doing, but there wasn't a set like task list for them to be doing. So like people were there, but like they weren't fully sure what they were supposed to be doing next. So people were constantly, her team was constantly coming to her, trying to figure out like, what's the next step? What should I do? Blah, blah, blah. And she's getting overwhelmed because she felt like because she gave like the departments and everything, they should know what to do, but that's not always the case. And then on the other side, there was the clients that were coming in, and clients weren't fully clear on what they were getting out of like the experience. So there was bottlenecks there because they paid, but they weren't really sure what they were paying for exactly. So like having to navigate that space. And then overall, there was my client that hired me. It was just like, I just need more time back so that way I can focus on the clients I want to, and of course let my team do their thing, because like that's why they were there. They knew more than her in certain aspects. She wanted them to do that, but they couldn't because there was no clarity around what they were working towards. So like when there's no clarity, there's no work being done the way you want to. So that's the backstory for that. So like the bottlenecks here, there's multiple, honestly. So like the ones we had to focus on were the client side and the team side. So the bottlenecks there were simply, okay, clients weren't understanding what they were getting. There's something that we need to work on for like onboarding and stuff when it comes to that, or even pre-onboarding, like what are you getting out of this? And then for the team side, even though they were there was a day-to-day operations problem because they weren't sure what they were doing. And if they did get an assignment, there was so much time spent on like explaining how to do things, why they need to do things and stuff. Pretty much a bunch of pointless meetings. So like we had to cut that stuff down. So as you can imagine, there were multiple things going on that was slowing down the business instead of being able to just go in, document certain things and just be out. We had to fix that stuff first. So set the scene there. Now we're getting into how are we going to resolve all this thing, all these problems going on, because you got your clients that are coming in that are paying money to get a service and they're not sure what they're getting. Then you have the team that's there, that's ready to help, but they don't know what they're doing either. So how are we fixing that? So getting on to the next part. My thing is start small. And people don't like hearing that, but honestly, starting small is the best way. And just to kind of break it down even further, if you listen to, I don't remember which video it was I did, but I had the 5 levels of business and stuff. I don't remember the name of the thing, but I think it was like the first or second episode I did. But I talked about the 5 levels of business, and the first level, like their main thing is marketing and sales, because you do not have a business if you don't have any money coming into the business. So the main thing that I focused on was marketing and sales. So I just applied that here with this business as well. They had clients coming in. And even though, yes, you have a team and everything and they're ready to help, but you want to get them tasks and stuff, the main thing you want to make sure of is you have people here that are paying you money and you want to make sure they are fulfilled. So we started there. So that was the biggest, I mean, not the biggest, but like that was the first bottleneck that we started working on. So like figuring out, okay, where is the disruption going at with the clients? Why aren't they fully understanding what they are getting out of here? And just some digging. It was just more so like, they were getting things there was nothing for onboarding. So like they paid and then it was just kind of like, I'll be in touch type thing, or like they're kind of dumped somewhere and that was that. So like we had to figure out, okay, like what can we do? What touch points can we add for them to realize what they can do? How can we make sure they're utilizing the space well and all that stuff? So that's where the onboarding process came in. And this is where came up with tasks, different touch points, and what else did we do? Figured out which team members would serve best. And then we also implemented like a monthly new client orientation type thing. There's a few things we implemented, but overall we focus on making sure clients knew what they were getting out of things. And that led to us kind of fixing one of the other bottlenecks, which was the team not knowing what they were doing like day to day. So with that, because we were able to resolve like, okay, like now that the clients are taken care of, at least communication wise in that aspect, now the team actually has some tasks they can do on a regular basis because they were bringing in people pretty consistently. So now that people were coming in consistently, they were getting taken care of. Now the team was able to come in and be like, okay, this person's going to take care of this touch point. This person's going to come in here, all that stuff. And like implementing different type of videos, and then people had questions, they had this stuff. So overall, the team was able to like come in a little bit more. And because we were able to have that worked out, documented and everything, we just were able to create like she was she was able to create like a little, this is how you do that. So we eliminated the need for the constant one-on-one meetings with the team. And also she was able to remove herself from the onboarding now that her team was able to take over. So she brought back just at least 10 hours a week alone just from implementing that. And what started off was just like making sure our clients were taken care of, turn into fixing some other things that are going on inside the business. And there are a few other things, but I just want to stay there just because starting small helps out a good bit, because when you try to do too much, you tend to skip things. So when you just start off on the smallest thing, like in this case, clients were coming in, clients were paying, and they weren't understanding what they're getting, fixing that sales piece ended up helping with the other aspects of things. So overall, start small. Yes, there are a whole lot of things to do, but I promise you, when you are able to break down the process and figure out what's holding up things, it makes it a whole lot easier. So, which leads me to my next section, is the 4 questions you need to ask when you are breaking down your process and figuring out like the next steps. So this is what we used. the 4 questions. I'm going to share this really quick. So if you are listening in, I will make sure to talk about it, obviously, since you can't see it. Okay, so this is the 4 questions I usually ask whenever we're breaking down a process. So like the beginning of this, you remember I said that processes are the step-by-step actions we take to achieve a goal. So for every little process that you're doing, and this is what we did here too, excuse me, you're going to break down what you can delegate. So okay, we're looking at one process in one step. So like here, like her example, we'll look at the client onboarding. So the client onboarding for us, it looked like implementing a email series with like videos from team members and letting them know when the next orientation was. There's some other stuff, but I'm trying to keep it short. But overall, we took those each step. So we wrote down like, okay, the client orientation, the client starts here. Once they pay, they get taken through this little series with the introductions and stuff and what's next type thing. And for each of those steps that client went through, we went through each of those steps as well. And we're like, okay, what can be delegated? These are 4 questions. So can this step be delegated, which means can someone else do it better? What can be paused or removed? What's no longer serving your growth? So was this step necessary? There was no onboarding, so we didn't have that, but that is one of the steps. Can you pause it or can you remove this step? Can you keep this step? Like, is this step working? Or can you automate this step? Like, is it something repetitive? Maybe it's something that technology can handle. In this case, technology was able to handle this, so we stuck with the automation piece and then delegated the meetings to the team members. So the 4 things, just to repeat that because my voice is cracking, y'all. So the 4 steps, when you break down, hold on, I'm gonna take a sip of water. I'm sorry, y'all. So the 4 questions you want to ask as you're breaking down the processes is, can you delegate it? Can you give it to somebody else? Can you pause or remove it? Is it needed? Pretty much. Can you keep it? And can you automate it? So delegate, pause, remove, keep, and automate. Those are the 4 questions you want to ask yourself as you go through each step of your processes and keep it flowing that way. So I'm going to stop sharing that. And that just leads me to finally reaching the end. So bottlenecks are pretty much nothing more than a disruption in the process. You always want to start small. Like, you may be tempted to be like, okay, I can fix this, this, and this. Start small and take it back to the 5 levels of business. Where are you at in the 5 levels of business? If you're having a particular problem, and honestly, you can go through like the systems too. Like in this case, it was service fulfillment. I talked about this for the sales process, and the team, like the leadership, day-to-day operations, and fell under that, figuring that kind of stuff out and figure out what tasks you want them to do or need them to do, and breaking down each of those tasks by the step-by-step process and ask yourself the 4 questions. Can you delegate it? Can it be paused or removed? Can it be kept or can it be automated? And doing those steps will help you alleviate the bottlenecks and hopefully be on your way to success. So there's that. I hope this helped when it comes to doing bottlenecks and working your way through them. And if you like conversations like this, I promise I will be bringing more. I would love, love, love to hear your thoughts on today's episode or any of the episodes, really. If you would like to stay in touch, you can join free Facebook group called Business the Lazy Way. Make sure you join the email list. I do have, as you can see, scrolling, if you're watching this, you can see at the bottom, I have a free lean systems guide. You can grab that at news.thelazymillennial.net. And finally, if you are in operations or you're just somebody that builds out systems or documents things inside like the business or your company, things like that, I do have something coming up later on this summer. I will share more details soon. I will say it is another membership, but I promise this will be worthwhile. I will talk about that again in another video, but that is coming up soon, so stay tuned for that. Other than that, that's all I got for you guys today. I will be back next week, and y'all have a great Tuesday. Or if you're listening on another day, I just hope you have a great day.